Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rift Reload, the podcast where you can load up on any and all things Wild Rift related. I'm AlkBattery. I'm joined by Smax, and we've got legendary guest coming in late on the import here. We've got Excoundrel. Sam, how are we doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm excited for the first episode here, Rift Reload.
Woo!
Yeah, we finally have a place to talk about Wild Rift. That isn't the other
Yes.
places that we talk about Wild Rift. It's gonna be great.
Awesome. Excoundrel, how are you doing? Again, I know it's a little bit late for you, so if you're tired, if you're waiting till boot up some Lost Ark, I get it. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. Yeah, no, as you said, it's late, but never too late to talk about Wild Rift. So you see what I did there? It's cheesy. I like it. I am a dad though. Alk. You've got to let me get away with that. No, but I'm really excited, and I'm it's sort of more excited to break down Wild Rift with you guys because I haven't had too much chance to do that either.
Yeah,
Exactly. It's the perfect time.
The last time that we got to interact with you, you were on a screen on a big wall behind us for
Yes.
Horizon Cup. No, that was about it. So now we're both on the screen. It's justice for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, I feel closer to you guys than I ever have done before, just through like being on a virtual screen together. It's fantastic.
Oh, look, and now you're
And it was a
even
big
bigger.
one, too. Exactly. He's got the big screen here. Hopefully for Icon Championships, you'll be there in person and we'll be on the screen, so we can swap the roles from Horizon Cup, get a full years in between.
Hey,
But,
I hope we're all there. That would be nice.
Yeah,
everyone,
me too.
everyone
Yes,
got
of
to go.
course.
That would be fantastic.
Yes, fingers
Speak
crossed for that
yourself,
one.
Man. Fly me out, please. I want to be there.
Yeah. So, Excoundrel, for everybody who may not know you, which, especially if they're mobile gamers, kind of feels a little bit weird, introduce yourself. I know you've been in the mobile space for a really long time, so give us the intro.
Yeah, I'm Excoundrel. I'm an old man, but I do a lot of Wild Rift content on YouTube, and I have done like mobile gaming content for a few years now. Started my channel in Vainglory, which was like one of the original mobile MOBAs, and then slowly worked my way through various games like Auto Chess. I did TFT for a year, and then now sort of doing Wild Rift. So yeah, I've done quite a few things, but I have firmly settled on Wild Rift for the time being.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Now, you
we
said...
know that you've got the PC League venture as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I forget about that part of my life. Did a lot of PC casting for League of Legends. Not so much these days, but it's something that for the last 7 years did make up a good portion of my casting career. So yes, thank you for reminding me about the last 7 years of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Kind of forgot.
You said you started Vainglory, but I had to do a little bit of deep diving because, you're our guest here. Do you remember what your first video on your YouTube channel is?
It's either a battle right video or a review of a game called The Wild 8.
Okay, so you were right on the first half. It is a battle right video.
Ooh.
Can you maybe walk us through this one? Do you remember what this is?
Is that character called Jade?
Yes.
I think I was playing Jade. It was a 2v1. These guys are not very good. I was not very good, but I was just kind of getting used to making content. And I was happy with my little 2v1. I actually very quickly gave up Jade. This is probably in the first few days of me playing the game. I very quickly gave up Jade, and I started playing Lucy, pretty much like one-tricking Lucy with my friend Orcs, who you might know from like LPL casting. I started one-tricking Lucy with him, so that was more fun. This was just me testing like how to make a video and like kind of getting myself in the vibe of making videos as well, which is it was not the most impressive battle right. It's not the most impressive battle right ever, but it was just a way for me to kind of like motivate myself to keep uploading videos, and got to start somewhere.
You got the dub, so I'd
Yeah.
say it's a good clip to start on. It gave me a lot of nostalgia for that game as well.
I
played it
loved
a lot
Battle
later
Right,
on,
man. Yeah, I
Great
love
time.
Battle Right.
It's free to play. I feel a little bit gypped because I bought the game, but
Oh,
it was
nice.
a good time back in the day for sure. I know some of the people on the Wisdom and Giant Slayer Productions play it too. I was talking to TJ, and he's really big on Battle Right as well. I know he has a lot of nostalgia for that too.
Yeah, hold up. You just gypped our own producer that's on the show. Joseph was a pro.
Yeah.
Speaking of TJ, he was like, TJ was washed. He was trying to cast me. Come on. You just totally... Joseph, if something happens to Sam's audio, we know why. There you go. So
take it off the screen.
exactly, we'll just take you off. I'll have a two panel with me and Excoundrel. So again, talking about your casting career, right? You've been in the scene for 7 years. You've been doing a whole bunch of different games. What has been casting Wild Rift been like, right? You were obviously doing Horizon Cup. We were having a lot of fun there. Like, what do you think is like the fun draw for you coming from just such a wealth of experience?
I think what I love about Wild Rift, and I think it's partly a selfish reason, I have always seen myself as a color caster, and I've always preferred being an analyst. I've always preferred doing the breaking down. But as I got older and my time became harder to dedicate to League of Legends PC, I transitioned from being a color to a play-by-play. And even though
Yes,
I did a decent job of play-by-play, it was never my passion. Like, it's not something that I actually really wanted to do. It was more a way to keep myself in the game. If you know what I mean, like, it was a way to keep myself relevant and keep myself in the game.
yeah.
Being back in Wild Rift and actually being really involved in the game, playing at a high level, understanding the games at a deep level, like almost like fraternizing in solo queue with a lot of the EU pros as well. It's not an experience that I've had since Vainglory, and I have that same like love for what I do in Wild Rift as the same kind of like that similar love that I had in Vainglory, because I haven't felt the same about casting a game since Vainglory, but that was a game where I really, really put my heart and soul into understanding the game and playing the game, trying to play at a high level, befriending pros, playing with them in solo queue, duoing with pros, and I'm able to do that in Wild Rift, and I haven't been able to do that since Vainglory days, and that's kind of like been really nice for me. And there's also been like me getting back to my roots of what really I think is the best part of my casting, which is like my analysis and that kind of stuff. So bit of a selfish reason, but it's made me very happy, and that's why I'm so keen to carry on with it.
Yeah, that's really cool. I know we've had some fun times playing like 5-stack with the NA pros as well. It's really, really cool. Gives us a lot of free LP and stuff as well, because those guys just carry us
I'll
every
take
time.
that free 5Q, man. I'll take the LP. I'm struggling right now to get out of flat. It's really embarrassing, honestly.
Oh, I thought you
Everybody's
got out
already
for a
hit
bit.
Emerald. No, I got out of flat, and then immediately TJ was testing some things on support, and we got right back out of Emerald. So, and I know Excoundrel's like, I do not have these problems. I'm in Mastered. And, it hurts. It hurts the ego just a little bit. Yeah, I was gonna say my first impression from watching Excoundrel whenever he was doing it, I was like, wasn't this guy a color caster before? And I saw play-by-play, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then obviously coming back, I know diving throughout your content, I've been watching a lot of your stuff, and I know it was a long time ago, I think, you were talking about, you're like, I want to make sure that when people look at me, they're like, they can see all of my content, the bevy of stuff that I have, and they can say, like, this guy's super knowledgeable. And obviously fraternizing with the EU people, I think it's a Snitch fan. If I remember the tier list you're doing with Stuart, it was Snitch or Doom.
I generally tend to like. I did a tier list with Snitch right at the start of like when I was doing the tier lists. I generally, just because organizing remote content production is difficult and time consuming, when you've got a full-time job, I can't make it as work as easily. But I generally tend to like feature pros in the tier lists or use pros to help shape my tier list. Doom does a lot of my sort of shaping of my AD carry and my jungle tier list. He's an absolutely fantastic player in the EU who played both now jungle and now AD carry at the professional level. So yeah, I generally tend to try and do that a little bit. I would say it depends who you duo with for free LP in EU. There are definitely some pros that run it down, but you know, it's really fun, and like I said, it's very like it's a passion thing for me, and I'm very passionate about Wild Rift.
Awesome. Yeah. That's really good to hear. So, speaking of the pros and speaking of the scene, we are going to go into the bigger, the global sense of the scene. We did just have the WNS qualifiers. I don't know how much North America you've been catching up on. I know obviously WREC is doing all those things at the same time. So, first impressions at the beginning of the year, what are we thinking of our own particular regions? We'll start with you, Excoundrel. What are we thinking of WREC so early on?
Well, we've only seen the first weekend so far, and a lot of the qualifiers were behind closed doors, so it was difficult to really get the full picture. I will say that it looks like there is a pretty significant gulf between the bottom and the top of the European region right now. You're seeing a lot of stomps, and if it is a 2-1, the games that were coin flippy basically.
Yeah.
I think that the teams that you would have expected to be top 4 of Origin, those names are still there and familiar. I think most people see Gamelord as the top team. Most people saw Gamelord as the top team coming into Origin series, but they didn't quite manage to produce. But I think now there've been some shuffles around. Ruiz has joined Gamelord from Team Queso. He's been exactly what they needed. He's been a very heavy engager, initiator, has a very wide champion pool. Gamelord look like a different beast entirely. And I think most people are kind of putting Gamelord as the number 1 team in Europe right now. Team Coast is going to be an interesting one because they have got a very green roster. They've kept a very core good top duo of Acolyte and Andre, but they brought in an incredibly green and amateur bot lane duo in the form of Joey Skaggs, and I can never remember the name. His solo queue name's Angry Support, but I can never remember his professional name. Methanowate. It brought in these guys, and I think the pro opinion of those guys is they are massive coin flippers. So it really depends. So yeah, I think the Team Case of Gamelord matchup is going to be an absolutely ridiculous matchup because you've got a very, very like heavy, like talent-driven roster in Queso, but they lack the experience, and they, as people said, they're a bit coin flippy. And you have Gamelord, who are now being seen as the number 1 roster in Europe. But otherwise, Rix is still good. Obviously, Doom switched to AD Carry from Jungle. They brought in a new jungle called SE7, who is good, very, very, very good. And Doom has always said that he felt more comfortable in the AD Carry role because that's what he played on PC. And he played that at a challenger level. There's like Doom has been challenger in PC and just did it for fun, and then came over to Wildrift, and he was also considered one of the best Vainglory players to have ever played the game. So he's had a lot of high tier pedigree across a few games. But Rix is still considered top 4, right? So there's still some really, really good teams. But I think Gamelord generally seen as the number 1 in EU right now.
Yeah, those are pretty much the 3 names that I've heard bouncing around as Rix, Queso, and Queso, of course, from Horizon Cup, and then Gamelord as well. I saw. And Dimitri mentioned it a little bit. We saw the stream that you did with Stuart.
Oh,
you had the players and the teams ranked on like a tier list that you guys made. I think we have an image of it as well. And I think you had those 3 near the top, or I think they were the top 3, right?
Yeah, there was definitely 4. I can't remember the 4 teams that I put right at the top of the tier list. It was Queso, Gamelord, and Na'Vi, there we go. Yeah, sorry, my brain farting. Na'Vi have got a pretty solid roster actually. They've got an AD carry called Hydro, who everyone thinks is a bit of a meme. But the core part of the Na'Vi roster is really good. Vex he's the number 1 rated player in solo queue in EU right now. And I think he's probably the best jungler in the game, especially if you give him Olaf or Lee. However, I do think if you take him off Olaf or Lee, there are junglers at the top of that list that are more comparable. But he's really, really good. I think, those teams that are top 4, in my opinion, I think Gamelord are a little cut above, like I said, but Rix, Na'Vi, and Queso are the other teams that you really need to be looking out for performing well in the WREC this split.
Is this more of like what teams you think are good right now, or in that order do you think is most likely that they will go to Icon Series or Worlds?
I didn't really. I'm going to be honest with you. I did this tier list in about 5 minutes as you asked me to. I didn't really order them, but okay. I would say that Gamelord are absolutely the team that I expect to go to Worlds, given the current roster and current play that we've seen from them. Between Rix, Na'Vi, and Queso, like Rix is the safe bet, right? But we've seen that Rix can flop a little bit when it matters, and their roster hasn't massively changed. I think Rix are the safe bet though. I think Queso are a bit too coin flippy, and I'm almost certain that Navi's bot lane is going to get turbo stomped later in the tournament. So I think that Rix and Gamelord are your safe bets to make it to Worlds from Europe.
Yeah, I remember being confused going into Horizon Cup and being like, oh yeah, no team, no talent. They rebranded to Team Queso, right? Because that's the team that made it, and then it was wrong. It was actually Rix because they ended up not quite clutching it out by the
That
end.
was that was so that was so sad. We were like, oh my god, this no team, no talent team looks so sick, and we're like, oh, they're not making it. Okay, so now we got to change our priorities. And I was looking at the
playing
bracket.
like Sona Seraphine. It was cool.
Exactly, it was super sick. I was looking at the bracket, like even if Na'Vi like they might just go ahead and win because they're going up against Entropic as their first round. They then have to what is most likely going to be playing up against Rix in the second part of it. We won't even get to see like Team Game Lord versus Rix until at the very least winners finals, unless somehow these teams go into lower bracket, which is super cool. That's going to be a really long time till we get to see like the top part of EU start to face against each other. So as a North American person, this is totally normal for us having a top heavy region. It's just a thing that happens. It crosses all kinds of esports. It hurts, but
yeah,
hey, at least I'm glad to see it's happening in EU for us.
It is what it is, but I think who else? Viv have got a pretty decent team, VIV Esports. But they're going to have to face Game Lord in the next round anyway. But though also it's worth noting that Rix have kind of bombed out a couple of tournaments recently, like really badly.
Yeah.
So they have not had like stellar performances. There are also these teams like Team Dark. There's Team Dark who have got some of the most talented players like individually. But they are legit coin flippers. Like you'll get a game where they honestly you'll get a game where they could actually 100% stomp one of the top tier teams in the region, and you'll have games where they actually just straight up run it. So like there are some really weird teams in Europe, but I'm fully expecting if they play to the best of their abilities that Game Lord and Rix will be that winners final.
Makes sense.
All I'm hearing is that Europe is just all coin flip all day. We're just playing to burger flip, and sometimes
that is
all
Europe,
we're known
actually.
for is perfect. That's all I need to know. These are going to be my notes for Icon Championships. Is just EU coin flip. Wait to see it
Source
happen. Just wait for it to happen. Exactly.
Absolutely, you can quote me on that. EU is the coin flip region.
Let's go. That's what I love to see. Talking about our own region, we've got WNS. We just finished our qualifiers this last weekend. If you have not been keeping up on North American Wild Rift, first of all, what are you doing? Second of all, I understand, especially what happened at Horizon Cup. This is our team. These are some of our teams. I know some of these are kind of familiar if you've been watching from across the pond. Is there anybody that your eyes are automatically kind of looking at, Excoundrel, especially because these are the seedings going into our first major?
Yeah, I mean, I was really surprised to see Immortals get top seed, considering they did not have a stellar year last year. And my boy Iraqi likes to run it down in Baron Lane. I'm joking, Iraqi. Yeah. But honestly, they definitely mean it. But I think they've done really well, and I'm really proud of that team because I also know how much work Iraqi does put into his pro play, as well as moonlighting as an analyst on the broadcast. You know, he's having a really good time over there in Wild Rift. I'm really glad to see him do well.
If he doesn't qualify as a player, he'll make it to Worlds as an analyst. He's got that backup.
Exactly.
With his fashion sense, he'll make it to anywhere as an analyst.
Yeah.
I envy Iraqi's fashion sense. He's the smoothest looking dude you've ever seen. Tribe, obviously, they made that switch out for Zio in the bot lane. So as you guys were saying to me off camera, like he was considered like the best AD carry or the best dragon laner in America. The same thing with the Tribe though. I think Chuck's like the weak link there. Chuck was the bit of the weak link in Vainglory, and I feel like he might be a bit of the weak link in Tribe. But I think in general, like he's still playing for Tribe, right? I'm not like
yes,
he is. Yeah, that was the only.
Yeah, your faces are like, what are you talking about, Xilra? But yeah, the Tribe roster in general, obviously starting's an absolute star. Like that guy's one of the best mid laners I think that North America's got. I just want to see Tribe do well internationally. I think they've got the talent there. I think that with Zio, they've obviously brought in a very mechanically gifted AD carry. Just interesting to see them not be as dominant, which I think is good for the region, if I'm honest with you. But it's interesting to see them not be as dominant, coming into this year.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up, is that we are, if we consider the Tribe is as good or better than they were at Horizon Cup, which I think is pretty true, then we're not a one-team region anymore, which is great because went completely undefeated in all of the first season, or year zero, as we were calling it for Summoner Series. They did not lose at all. So the fact that they are actually being contested now is really cool. Sentinels was the team that beat them, and then Immortals beat Sentinels. So we've got some good competition here. Touching on Immortals just a little bit for you, Excoundrel, because there is a little bit of a difference. They did swap out their jungler. It is no longer Yikes playing. He's now the support for enemy, and their jungler is now a player called Lebmont. And Iraqi, in his interview, said that he thinks that Lebmont is the best mechanical player in the whole region. So,
Wow, okay.
and I believe him from what we saw, honestly. His Lee Sin was really good. So I think there's some exciting things to look forward to for Immortals. Alongside just the rest of the team has been looking really stellar too.
It's interesting that the Yikes is the mid role swap to support as well. And I never really expected Yikes to go pro. I assumed he was going to be more focused on the content side of things. But it's cool to see him still sort of kicking around and doing some work. But I think like that is a sensible upgrade for Immortals, and it's obviously worked out for them really well. And good to see them. Good to see them kind of like doing better. And I think actually the more challenge that Tribe has in NA, the better the region will be overall heading into international competition. And I still believe Tribe, with the quality of their roster, like I still believe they're a team that very likely people are still considering to be one of the best. Obviously, we didn't get to touch on Enemy, but a lot of people see Enemy as a really good roster now as well. But I think Tribe still has that quality on their roster that they could still, in the right circumstances, still take the first seed in America. So the problem is, like, I think it's really easy for me to call Europe, but I find it more difficult to call your region right now because I think actually things have been shaken up so heavily from last year that it's very difficult to really say who the top two would be out of like those top 5 or 6 teams that you've got on your list.
A lot of the development so far has been off camera too. Like they've played
that is true.
Only a few games on the main stage, so we haven't gotten to see a lot of their improvements. It was sort of just like a big slap in the face for us, like a big wake up call. Like, oh, these teams are actually being really competitive here, which is really exciting. I think this weekend is going to be a really big eye opener, seeing all of them against each other. Because we mentioned it before we went live, but NANDU sort of has a similar issue right now where there are a really good like high tier set of teams, and then there's
everybody else,
sort of edged everybody
literally
else
everybody
right
else,
now.
guys.
And yeah, I think it's promising that it's not just Tribe and then everybody else now. And because of that, I think this tournament this weekend is going to be really fun.
Yep. Actually, question that I have for Excoundrel, because obviously more experienced over in Europe. Do you have as many people role swapping to maybe not just support, but to other roles? Because here in North America, we've got a bunch of players who are like, I want to be on a team, so I'm going to just take the bullet and just like role swap out of my main lane to go play either support, go play jungle, do another role. It is like, it's kind of crazy for us, but does that happen like pretty frequently for you?
Well, obviously the highest profile swap was Doom from jungle to AD carry for Rix, but we haven't had as many like major role swaps. When I look back at that tier list that we made with Stu, that most of the people in that tier list were in that role. So like it's I think Friend, who was the support for no, Friend was the previous AD carry, so that's a lie. Yeah, I think for the most part it's the people have stayed in the similar roles that they were in previously. But I think the role swapping is natural. You know, we haven't had that much competitive wildrift to work with right now, and there's probably people who are still working out what their preferred roles are, where they feel that their strengths are. You know, are they a better shot caller? Are they less mechanical, but they've got better macro? You know, so I think it's natural that we're going to see role swaps happen over the course of the first 2 years, because it happened in League PC as well. And I think it's going to, you know, as pros find their comfort zones and as pros find the role that they feel is going to be best for them and their teams, probably will see a lot more role swaps happen. But we haven't seen as many high profile like role swaps in Europe, realistically.
Okay, good, because we're seeing our AD carries for like previously Cloud9 on Enemy now. Jackie was playing support for a really long time. Yikes is now out of jungle and in support, where he was doing really well in jungle. So I was surprised to see him swap down to support. And I'm interested now because he really smurfed in some of his series. His set play was chef's kiss, really excellent.
Well, set is also just like, he's
Yeah.
just kind of there. Set is
Yeah.
pretty strong.
hmm Speaking of this weekend, we do have a ton of different tournaments going on. We've got not only got our first major coming up this weekend, we've also got Brazil that is now starting with their open qualifiers being done now. You've got WCK that's happening in the 21st of February. Japan starts on the 27th. Just off rip, if we have any kind of feelings coming off of Horizon Cup and coming into the new year, do we feel any sort of way about some of these regions now starting up their professional play? Sam, do you wanna start here?
Yeah, so I haven't actually seen the WCK games yet because I think they were played like over the last night.
Yeah.
If I'm correct, and I was asleep, so gonna need to catch up on those. But I think everyone's eyes are very clearly gonna be there and also in WRL, as those were the highest competitive teams alongside Japan actually, with Sengoku, excuse me, at Horizon Cup. So I think catching up on those teams and everything is going to be really fun. I know that in the qualifiers, Dakun didn't even make it into the main WRL league.
Nope.
So that gets me very excited. Like I'm sad to see Dakun Gaming not in the main competitive set of WRL teams, but like if they didn't make it, then who did? So that's going to be really cool next month for sure.
Dakun didn't just not make it. Dakun absolutely sprinted it down. They
did not.
They bombed it. They absolutely bombed. So I'm very interested to see how the WRL is going to play out. I agree with you 100% there, Smax. I mean, you had the team that steamrolled, like absolutely steamrolled Horizon Cup, and they get creamed in their like the qualifiers for the league that they were supposed to go back to.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting. I'm very interested for the Southeast Asian progression. I want to see how that region does. I think it's a region that the storylines that we had building into the Horizon Cup is it's a region that's founded on mobile gaming. It's a region that is going to field a load of competitive teams. They've got wealths of experience across many mobile titles, and they didn't. I don't really think they lived up to expectations massively.
No.
In the Horizon Cup. So I kind of want to dial back. I want to see how Southeast Asia progresses this year because it's a region that clearly has a lot of talent. It's a region that clearly I think has the foundations to be like a top tier region in our in our esport. But I wanted more from them at Horizon Cup, and that more was given to us by WCK, who I think overperformed really. I think KT absolutely had an amazing tournament, and I think obviously WRL, which was just like everybody expected to be sort of the top tier, and they absolutely were. So for me, I'm interested to see how Southeast Asia does. That's going to be where I'm kind of like viewing and looking and seeing if they are putting out a sort of higher tier gameplay this year.
I also recently I watched the qualifier finals for LATAM. By the way, Aku and Matute Wolf are phenomenal casters. I'm not fluent in Spanish, but I love listening to them. And Ebro did still win. They are still the best team in that region, which is cool to see. They have some roster shakes. Like Ache is not on the team anymore, which I thought was interesting. They don't have just like the big Viking on stage anymore. But I was really entertained by those games. We'll say they were very scrappy and everything. But yeah, that was a really fun time.
Well, considering after last year, during our like Summoner Series Championship, you're like losing your mind over Tank Corky during their best of 7 for Wild Score. I'm glad that you're having a little more fun with the region because I'm kind of like really enjoying both Brazil and the whole of the South America region. They have been really, really awesome to watch, especially in some of the fight nights that we've been seeing, the community tournaments also hosted by GiantSlayer. They have been like the B4 roster, which is now a kind of a conglomeration of some of the TSM players, specifically Carlito coming over, and the second place team, Sao Agradece. They have been really, really sick. And so I kind of want to see more out of this region, considering, I think they performed about how we maybe have expected at Horizon Cup, and they definitely still have a lot of surprising things coming out from there. So
they beat us. So
yeah, I mean. I was trying to gloss over that part, but I'm glad we got to it. They did technically beat us. There is a losing record.
It was an NA org, TSM was the one who did it, so it takes the sting away a little bit.
Feels good, man.
Honestly,
It
I'm
was
just
good,
glad.
man.
I'm glad that no one built Iceborne Gauntlet Corki at Horizon Cup
Me
because
too.
I would have lost it. I would have actually just resigned on the spot.
I'm still
Yeah.
like sulking that Black Cleaver Corki is like his strongest item. It does not give me the good chemicals in my brain that that is the case. But
Dude,
I,
all the pro
I've
players
learned
are
to
doing
cope
it,
with
man.
it. I know.
All of them are just building. It's actually League of Black Cleaver, which is still happening from Horizon Cup. I
Yeah.
remember watching some of the finals, and we were counting how many Black Cleavers were in a game, and
It's
I think
like
the highest we got was
7
like
to 8.
7.
Yeah.
It's just, oh man, I'm glad that that's the only thing bruisers can go.
I don't know. It's so weird because the item itself isn't like overpowered.
Nope.
I think it's just because there's a lack of like other items that provide the same kind of stats and the same kind of like I guess needs for certain carries. But yeah, I think I mean I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get why people are spamming that many black cleavers. But I'm not a pro, so
Power to them. Power to
Yeah.
them. If they want to go ahead and do that, go ahead, bud. Uh, as we kind of talk about Black Cleaver, we can maybe switch into talking about the game as a whole, talking about our patches. We did just get our new patch a couple of weeks ago. Set is
There
here
he
and
is.
definitely here to stay. We just got Yumi over the last weekend, which thank God for our casters. They did not have to talk about that champion on the release. So now that Set's been out here for a couple of weeks, Excoundrel, what are our thoughts? Is this champion as broken as Twitch chat is saying, or is the subreddit right and they're like, Set is not broken, guys. Everyone's just bad. What's the take?
no, he's good. Like set is good. I think the problem is that people are trying to play the like the mathematically correct health set when that's not the way that you play him.
Yep.
You play set Blade of the Ruin King Black Cleaver like you do Renekton, and you just hit people in the face really hard.
My
Yeah,
man.
no,
My man.
it's legit the way that you play set. I mean, set jungle is a thing, set support is a thing, set Baron lane is a thing. I think most people in EU I see him playing jungle. So a lot of people pulling him out in the jungle, but yeah, the mistake that people are making is they're trying to play tank set when tank set is actually kind of bad. What you want to play is Blade of the Ruin King, Black Cleaver set into Sterak's Gauge, and you just punch people really hard, and he's really obnoxious. So I think that's pretty good. You just need to not try and build him like PC, and you'll do fine.
The biggest mistake I've seen people making is maxing Haymaker first. And that I don't think that's correct. I think you're supposed to max the punches.
I also agree with you because you're playing Blade of the
Yeah.
Ruin King build, so 100%
Yeah.
agree with you.
Exactly. He's like, we're in line there, bro. We're in line.
Very much in line with you. I agree.
People try to do like a half measure with that. They're like, oh, the Haymaker is the broken thing. I get this big shield, but you just like punch him to death and everything. Now I have a little bit of a different take because I've been trying to do like support, and I think when you're doing support, it's a little bit. You have to do like the Deadman's Blade a little bit more,
Sure.
just to get the crowd control. It's a different champion. I feel like at that point, but yeah, for jungle, I agree. You need to level up the first ability for sure.
And Baron lane.
I
I think Baron
Yeah,
lane as well.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay, because I've been playing a little bit of Baron Lane set. I played the math build against this Riven player. I was like, man, this kind of sucks. I kind of want to go back to play the Blade of the Ruin King. I'm, as an off roll top laner, I love playing Renekton. This champion is broken. I don't care what TJ or other people say about this. I love this champion so much.
Who is
reload.
saying Renekton is not broken? Renekton is one of the most broken Baron laners in the game. Straight up one of the most broken Baron laners in the
Good.
game.
Yeah, at them.
So it is just me. It
At
is
them.
just no. I'm not gonna do. No, we're not gonna at them. I don't want them to feel bad about.
I'm gonna go on a
themselves,
witch hunt
'cause
for
then
these Renekton
No.
haters.
There's already enough. We don't need to do.
There's enough in that NPC league to be fair. So
Yeah,
but-
Exactly. You can. I'm sure. Also, like Draggles is done with this man. I don't need to go on Twitter and start
Yeah.
adding people. Everybody's already too busy adding him to fix matchmaking. It's enough.
Oh,
I'm
goodness.
not going to add to it. I want to add some good to the world at least in some case here. For
Like
Wild Rift.
Yumi.
Speaking
Yumi's
of,
good for the world.
exactly. Depending on who you ask, I'm not a huge fan of Yumi personally, even as a marksman player. But what are we feeling about the book cat? Is she like very good? I know Sam, you've been a little down on the champion.
Yeah, so granted, most of my experience, all my experience, has been in just ranked play, and that is an entirely different beast for a champion like this for competitive. I personally am of the opinion that if you pick this champion in ranked, you are probably a detriment to the team. Because you do need to have a lot of communication to make this champion work. It's very similar to how she works in PC, where you don't have movement commands. You just strap onto somebody else, and they take you away. If they're good, then you're gonna get kills. If they're bad, then should attach to somebody else.
Yep.
And it's very champion dependent too, which also makes it a bit hard for ranked. However, when we see this in competitive play, I think people are going to figure out the pairs that work best with her. Off the cuff, I think the best champion is going to be Olaf with it. Not necessarily in the lane, but if you have these two champions on the team at the same time, it's going to be really good. We already know that like Olaf and Lulu together are really strong, for instance, or Olaf and Orianna. I think Yuumi just takes that to another level. And then pairing her in lane is going to be a bit interesting too. But I think specifically if you have her with one of these like bruisers that goes in melee range and really appreciates all three things that Zoomies give, which is healing, attack speed, and movement speed, then you're probably going to have a good time if you've got this on your team.
Yeah, I think we were talking about it before the podcast as well. We were saying that I very much see Garen Yuumi being a thing in Wild Rift.
Yeah,
I think Garen is busted. I think Yuumi is a good complement to Garen. So I could see the Garen Yuumi being a strong lane. I could see Garen Darius being a lane, or even just a pairing that would work well. Darius traditionally not so good in PC, but actually works really well in Wild Rift because of like the heavy melee comps that we see floating around. I think Jax Yuumi, Jax again. You don't see much Jax in PC, but Jax actually is a pretty viable jungler in Wild Rift, and so therefore you could very much see Jax Yuumi as a pairing that works out well in a composition kind of sense. I agree with your assessment here, Smax. I think that you if you're a solo queue support, you don't really want to pick Yuumi. You lose a lot of agency, and therefore
LP.
Yeah, agency is the number one name of the game when you're playing support in solo queue. So if you pick Yuumi, you're kind of taking that away from yourself. But I think it's a really good duo queue champ. I think it's a good trio queue champ. I think it's something that actually, if you've got a really good player that you play with, it will complement them well. I think people are still kind of figuring out. But number one tip: don't build boots on Yuumi. Please never build boots on Yuumi. It's a useless item.
Oh,
I know that you might want that redemption, but trust me, 1,500 gold is much better spent in like going towards Staff of Flowing Water or going towards Ludens, which a lot of people like to build on Yuumi in solo queue as well. So I'm just telling you, do not build boots on Yuumi. You are wasting an item slot. I know those item slots do give you nice upgrades, and it's cool to have redemption on the team. Maybe you can think about it later, but definitely don't first item boots. You are wasting 1,000 gold. You are absolutely turbo wasting 1,000 gold. And I see way too many Yuumi players in solo queue decided they want boots. You don't need boots. Trust me.
Preach.
You don't need boots.
Yeah, Sam, as soon as the champion came out, he's like, if I see anybody building boots, it's run down on site.
They give you like the recommended build path for the champion like right away. You don't get to see like what the pros are building on her yet. So it was like build boots, third item. I was like, nope, I'm not doing that.
Nope.
I don't walk.
And for everybody at home to know, surprisingly enough, I know you're talking about it being in solo queue, but I saw a thread today from this, or at least from this week on the subreddit, where they were like, I would prefer if you are off-rolled on support for some reason in solo queue, pick Yuumi, because I don't want you to playing Brand. I don't want you playing like Soraka or something and like having to like take resources. Just play Yuumi, no resources, strap on, and experience the game from like a bird's eye view. Have fun.
That player must be really confident in his carry ability.
I kind of understand
really
it.
hate autofill supports.
I kind of understand it, because if you're not autofill support, like, and you pick Thresh, you're just going to run it down. I kind of understand that. And Yuumi requires 0 brain cells to operate most of the time. So I think I think I kind of understand it from that perspective. But Yuumi has a bit of nuance, mostly mana management. Yeah. Like mana management is the number one thing for Yuumi for the most part. So Yuumi does have a little bit of nuance that she works with. But I would say it's one of those champions. If you are a first-time support, you could pick it and probably get away with it, because you reduce positioning errors, because your positioning errors can all be on the person that you're attached to. So, yeah.
The only thing I'll say about that is the Prowling Projectile is shockingly difficult to operate. From what I've
watching
played
you
so far.
use it, I was like, what is happening?
Okay,
on my screen?
So coming from a standpoint where I'm like Mastery 7 on Yuumi on PC, no shame in that. I played a lot of Yuumi. The handling is very different with the missile speed. So turns are a lot sharper, but they drift. So it's really interesting because in you'll like you can get around a bend, but it'll take some time because the momentum is like more realistic, I guess, with it. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, but it is a lot more difficult to actually hit. I haven't gotten used to it yet, so there is that.
Yeah, I'm reading the tagline for why this person wanted unpopular opinion for Yuumi for autofilled. Yuumi fixes the problem of Senna and Brand. You don't want to play support. You don't know how to play support. Just pick Yuumi and let someone carry. I love it. I'm glad this subreddit.
If you're not making any decisions, then you can't make bad decisions. So
there you go. Perfect.
That's the
this is also in line with the subreddit. Also, at the same time, another thread today saying Yuumi is the best support in the game. So I'm glad that they are figuring out the meta before a lot of us are. This is really just great stuff here.
Cheers, Wildrift subreddit, doing our work for us.
Yeah,
exactly. Free content every day of the week.
All of my knowledge comes from there.
So we have got, for our first episode, we got to do a tier list because it's just, it's free content at that point, right?
It's what everyone wants.
We're going to do a top 10 of our top 10 solo laners. Do we want to work from the bottom here, guys? Or do we
you have to work from the top because going from the bottom is going to be awkward. I think you have to work from the top.
Yeah.
Okay, so Excoundrel, this is all you, bud.
This is entirely up to you, Excoundrel. We're putting you on the spot.
Is it? Okay.
So
Number
this
one.
Is specifically champions, by the way. This isn't players.
Yes, I assume so. Number one, Fiora. I think Fiora's got. I feel like Fiora's got no bad matchups in the game. I think Grasp Fiora is still ridiculously strong. And I think a good Fiora player will be almost any other solo laner in the game. Number two, Renekton. I think Renekton is really strong. I think he has got a few bad matchups, but he's got a ridiculously good level 5 and is really influential at the the first objective fights most of the time. Number 3, wait a second, guys. What did I do on my last tier list? I need to go and check what I did.
We can put Garen in all at the same time because I also really love Garen. Champion is way too busted. I think Garen's super tanky. Really good,
yeah.
I think he's better at support.
That is true.
Oh,
I love Garen's support.
Wait, guys, wait. I meant to say Jace a little bit higher up. Jace probably before Garen. I'd probably say Jace before Garen. Jace is actually turbo busted, and I think he's due a nerf, if I'm honest with you. So Fiora, Renekton, Jace, then Garen.
Okay.
And then Gragas and Darius, I think both really super safe, and Gragas is quite flexible. There aren't many good AP Baron laners, and Gragas is the only good AP Baron laner in the game. So he's a nice flexible option. I also really like Malphite. Now this is going to be Malphite is not unless you're playing against Kennen or Kayle, Malphite's not going to win lane, right? But I can tell you more often than not, I'm not sure I heard this stat. Someone told me this stat. More often than not in Wildrift, if you have a tank on your game, you win. Your tank on your team, you win. So I think that
sounds about right.
I think that Malphite is a really good blanket pick that if you're not comfortable playing many Baron laners or mechanical Baron laners, you can pick Malphite, you can spam your first ability, you can never take a trade, and when it comes to a team fight, you just press your ultimate. And that's your job done. And he can be played AP in the right circumstances, but also just go full armor or full tank, and he works really, really well.
I ban Malphite in my ranked games. It's too reliable.
That is true. Yeah.
Beyond that, it gets a bit muddy in the sense that there are lots of Baron laners that I think are okay, but I'll just pick a couple. I think Camille's still a really good Baron laner. I think Irelia is decent, and I also think that who else should I put in there?
If you want, we can spitball you a champion or two.
And feel free.
We'll see where it sticks. Okay, Sam. This one is definitely a solo queue one that I've experienced. What do we think about Tryndamere, guys? Tryndamere. He's been picking up a few buffs patch to patch. I really hate this champion.
He's better in jungle, in my opinion. I think.
Yeah,
I think he's better in jungle.
skeptical.
Okay.
I'm more curious about like Riven, honestly.
Riven's good.
Good.
I was thinking about Riven. I was thinking between Riven and Pantheon, but I think Pantheon might be better jungle. I'm vibing with Riven Smax. I think Riven's a very solid Baron lane pick, honestly.
Okay. There you go. Smack's 2 for 2 on these. You love to see it. This is the 100% correct Baron lane tier list. If you're playing top lane, competitive, ranked, you're just playing normal like Earth games, and you're looking for the best champions. This is it. This is your list from Excoundrel. You probably find more content like
this through. 100% thought
Yes.
this through really well.
Hundreds
Zero
of games
flaws
on
on this
every
list.
champion, so he knows the
Yes.
matchups.
And of course, if you need more great tier list content like this alongside other stuff, Scoundrel's YouTube is exactly faultless. Like
gonna do a tier list this week. I maybe should have included Set somewhere here, but I haven't played enough Set Baron lane to really have a good opinion of where he should go.
It's broken. It's very broken. I've played a couple of games. It is very broken.
Yeah, he probably deserves a place in this list, but I just wasn't confident about where to put him. So I will probably find out where Set's going for my tier list this week, and then I'll shove him in.
Nice. Honorable mention to the boss right there.
Yeah.
There you go. Perfect. So this is a good list. We are now going to move on to our favorite strategy here. We've got Scryer's Bloom. Now, for an explanation, if you've been playing Wild Rift, obviously there's a bunch of plants around the rift. Scryer's Bloom gives vision, and this is our vision as to what Wild Rift will become in the future. It could be, about the esports. It could be literally about the game, but it's literally anything. So you guys in Twitch chat can also vote for these to see which one of our visions will be correct. So hopefully we'll have some fun, and maybe, Sam will keep getting the right predictions. I will have some random Tryndamere thrown in, and Excoundrel will say X champion is broken. We'll keep it open. So for our first one, we've got Enchanters and Tank will be the new Wild Rift meta. Now, I talked about this during the pre-show a little bit, and I got some question marks, so I'll explain my premise behind this. We already have really, really strong bruisers. Excoundrel, you were talking about it earlier, about there being a very heavy melee-focused kind of meta around the game already. So we have Garen, we have Set now in the game, we have Darius, who is not bad, Renekton, Fiora, all these champions are super strong bruisers. And typically what bruisers kind of lack, now that they have the proto belts, a little less so, but movement speed and enchanters who can help buff them up. I think with Yuumi being added to the game, with Karma being the next champion alongside her and Shen, I think that enchanters plus tanks are already kind of the wave in bot lane. When you look across the pond to Korea and China, professionally, they're playing stuff like Garen support. They're playing a lot of tank front lines with Varus in the back line to just deal poke damage. I think that once you add enchanters to the mix, we may just see full-on tanks in bot lane. We're already phasing out marksman as it is with Ziggs and playing Orianna Morgana. So why not just take the next step?
Do you know what's so funny? When you told me this before the show, Alk, I thought you meant enchanters building tank items, and so I was like,
"Oh no!"
Like I was like, "What on earth?"
Okay, no, thank God.
So I was like, "Please explain that to me." But now this makes significantly more sense. I think that enchanters and tanks could be a stable part of the meta. I think.
Yeah.
I think it's difficult to say because I think enchanters are really enchanters are generally quite good right now. Like in Europe, most people consider Nami to be like the best support in the game. And so you'll often find that a lot of comps naturally include enchanters tanks. I'd maybe go one step forward, and if we see Yuumi getting picked up in competitive, I think like Yuumi plus a bruisery tank bot lane could be a meta that we see open up. But I think you are seeing a decent amount of like enchanter tank combos. Like I know we're getting a lot of Nami tank combos and Janna tank combos in Europe right now. So definitely see this one being more and more true as time goes on.
I'm a bit
Sam,
skeptical.
you're our support.
I'm a bit skeptical of the tank thing because I do still feel like we're in a bit of an uncontested territory for bruisers. I don't know if you're counting bruisers in that same like category because you mentioned
Yeah,
Garen
I'll lump
support.
them in.
I kind of
lump them
am
in.
okay.
because
Yeah.
bruisers are really
Okay.
tanky at the moment anyway.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
All right,
like
then yeah.
Black Cleaver Sterax is unbelievably tanky with like no resistances. So and Dead Man's Plate's really popular for bruisers too. So
Mhm.
they kind of get quite tanky just naturally.
Okay, well then yeah, I agree. I was just concerned about the other stuff like is Riven a tank, is Garen a tank? I think Dr. Mundo is the biggest surprise to me and how well he's been performing recently. Like,
Dr.
and that's
Mundo
even
support,
without-
man. Like Dr. Mundo
Yeah,
support
It's
is actually
so
what the hell.
good.
it's so good.
So
It's
good.
really, really good. You actually deal more damage than most of the other like supports. Like if you were to play a mage in the support position, I'm pretty sure Mundo just out damages it if you're hitting all your cleavers. So definitely give it a try. He's melee champion, so the autos aren't there. But if you're doing what I do, which is level cleaver like a bunch of times and then kind of just ignore your auto attack empower, which is the third ability, where he just like slaps you with his bag. Like that ability is really useless as support, so you don't level that until later.
Probably.
Just keep putting points into your cleaver and you'll do well. Yeah, anyway. I guess this is time for my prediction, right?
Yeah.
I think, and I'm pretty confident in this, that NA is going to get out of groups at Worlds. I think they're going to do it. I saw a lot that made me very confident in the first few games for North America. Specifically, I really like Lebmont and the rest of Immortals on their mechanical skill. And I think that the Sentinels roster has been doing a lot of really solid.
Thank you, production. Thank
Really
you, production, for that one.
solid team play and preparation that they've been going into their games with. So them alongside the expected skill of Tribe is giving me a lot of hope. And maybe Copium, as our producers are putting it, for North America at Worlds. I think they've got it.
I've got to make a prediction now, and I have no idea what to predict.
Well, while you're thinking about that, I'm also pretty confident. We've got TJ, another broadcaster that was doing SEA last season, as well as now on the WNS alongside us. He thinks NA is very likely to potentially go and make it out of groups. Excoundrel, quickly before you have to make your prediction, do you think NA could potentially make it out, or are you still a little doubtful about that one?
No, you guys are boosters. You're not making it out.
All right, man. I don't want to hear it from coin flip. I don't want to hear it from the coin flip union. Okay.
They're gonna flip heads.
Jeez.
What are you saying?
Yeah, I guess. I hope not for our sake. Oh, man.
Okay. I think Shen will be pick ban when he comes out in wildrift. There you go. There's my.
Okay.
I think Shen will be
Okay.
like pick ban. I think his global is going to be too good. Depending if it works the same way. I don't know how he works in wildrift. So, but let's say his kit is identical to PC. I think Shen will be pick ban.
Yeah, I wonder what the adjustments will be to him because they've made some minor adjustments to a lot of different champions, like moving in even like the ones that feel really solid in PC. So I wonder if he'll have like any slight adjustments.
I would not be surprised to see Blade of the Ruined King, Black Cleaver Shen. I actually would not be surprised to see it. Like legitimately would not be surprised to see Blade of the Ruined Black. But even then, like Dead Man's Plate Shen and like a lot of the items that are just super good right now, they all favor Shen quite heavily. And I just think that the fact that his global is so immediately impactful in team fights, like you can have your cake and eat it. You can split top tower and teleport to Drake. You can the global options that Shen will open up are going to be really strong in Wildrift, I think. And I'm very excited to see him because he's one of my favorite champions. He's one of my favorite champion designs from League as well. And the taunt is just ridiculous. So I think Shen's going to be really strong.
Hey, maybe I had something with the on-hit build too, because back in the day when PC League had the current iteration of Wildrift, Wit's End, it was a core item on him. You'd go for that, so you'd have the healing on your autos, and then you'd have the magic resist. It's probably gonna still be there for him in this game as well. I would imagine. So I think you're definitely onto something. I don't know if he'll build Black Cleaver, It is really good.
Maybe not
so...
Black Cleaver, but it could be
maybe
it could be
Black
like
Cleaver.
Blatherin, King Whitsend, Styrax, or
Yeah, or like Sunfire. I think it'd be really good on him.
Sunfire's
well.
a solid one as well. Yeah, I think there is an on-hit element that we'll see from Shen, and I think he's going to have relatively decent lane matchups. I think he's going to be able to push top lane tower, or at least get some plates before, and then have that immediate impact in dragon fights. It's just, this is all pending Shen operating in the same way he does in PC, because clearly they have made adjustments to globals. They've actually made pretty significant adjustments to globals. Like TF's globals cut down, Galio's globals cut down, but then they've also made
better though. So
yeah. They've also made people like Lux fully global, so it's very weird about how they end up doing it. So the only thing about Shen is that because you don't have portraits that you can use for your ultimate, I wonder if they have like ally portraits come out from the ultimate and you just drag it to the ally you want to go to. Because I feel like if you have to like drag it cross map and then try and get it onto the ally you want to get it onto, it's going to be an absolute nightmare. So I don't know how they'll end up making that work.
What if they just make it like teleport is right now in Wild Rift, where like it gives you press the if I don't know how often people in Twitch chat have used teleport. I know it doesn't happen in my solo queue games whatsoever. But if you use teleport in Wild Rift, it opens up the map and it shows you a bunch of different places you can go. I wonder if they'll just like take that. Also, lightly talking on Shen's iterations, I really loved old Shen, where he would throw the sword at someone as a projectile, and then you just beat them over the head constantly. That was one of my.
Same as Akali. I just like you throw the shuriken at their head and just like proc it.
Yes.
Just throw the shuriken at their head and then proc it.
Perfect. That was any time that they were about to rework a champion, I go and spam like 100 games of them, and I'm like, wait, this is actually so much fun. My most favorite memory is old Mordekaiser before he got reworked, which I'm really hoping he gets added to Wild Rift and breaks the game just like he did in PC. Where, you would be able to like mark someone, shield a minion, you just sit there and heal.
Oh, yeah.
I loved old Mordekaiser right before he got reworked.
Raised enemy champions from the dead and get them get the enemy Kog'Maw to fight for you. Then they reworked them to like resurrect dragons.
Yep.
And then they oh man, Mordekaiser went through some stuff, man. He went through some stuff in the years of League.
He had some emo phases as a teen.
Yeah, it happens. It was just a phase. So exciting stuff coming into the future. Hopefully one of us makes it right. If more than one of us gets it right, I think we need to start applying for some lottery tickets. We've got a mailbag section here. Questions. This is the first episode, so hopefully in the future you join us in the Discord so you can ask questions and maybe make it into the next. So here's our first question. Do the current teams in NA in Europe have enough power to challenge the other regions? If not, what are they missing? This is obviously coming off of the back of a pretty middling performance at Horizon Cup, where SEA as well also didn't perform. I just want to note that on there for everybody who's a global fan, but it was really a China-dominated tournament, especially when you look at our finals.
I think I would say that this is quite difficult to answer at the moment because we're still quite in our infancy in Wild Rift esports right now. And so, if we're to just go off esports culture and sort of like general esports performances, you're always going to expect EU and NA to come in as underdogs, because we are across multiple esports realistically. But what I would say is that we're still very heavily in the infancy, and I think there is still a lot of room for NA and EU to win through strategy or win through draft. Where I don't think Wild Rift's been figured out yet. Like League PC very very quickly gets figured out. In terms of the best way to play the meta and like the way to approach the game and like what rotations you need to be making. Still don't think teams have fully figured out that in Wild Rift. I still don't think teams have we still have yet to see teams really do split pushing well in Wild Rift. Beyond Darkoon just getting Jax ridiculously fed in the Horizon Cup and just running it down side lanes, but very few teams,
cheating.
Very few teams know how to like split push properly in Wild Rift and actually use that as a viable and consistent win strategy. And look, I'll be real, it's not a consistent win strategy in PC either, but there are things that we're still lacking in Wild Rift in terms of that strategical execution. So I think there's still room for NA and EU to surpass other regions, but it's too difficult to tell. I feel at this point in time.
Yeah, I think you're definitely onto something, because when the esport is this new, there are going to be different meta reads across the world, and there's a chance that some of the Western teams have the correct meta read, and they get in there, and their meta read is just a lot stronger than the other regions, which is what happened to Dokkan Gaming, by the way, at Horizon Cup. They figured out that you could very
Yeah.
easily funnel your jungler, and he'd be level 15 while everyone else is level 11, and he'd play Jax, and they would just win from there. That was a great meta read, and it was very clear from the get go that they were playing the best strategy, and everyone was playing catch up at that point. There's a chance that that happens with the Western regions because the game is so new. So uh, I think that that's sort of a cop out answer because it doesn't really speak to their NA and EU's individual skill. But that is probably the most likely way that they come in as the leaders in the tournament.
I was gonna say that that has been kind of just been the case across our counterpart in PC, right? Like almost every year for Worlds, everyone's like, "This is the expected way to play," coming off of X best team, and then like someone comes in with something wacky or something a lot different. Like I always remember, like Misfortune support being played, and it like basically taking a team all the way to game 5, or like Ardent support coming in like halfway through a Worlds tournament, and it's like, oh, this is actually just the best strategy, and only really one team had like practice on it. So adding on to Sam there, like it is very possible that at the time we just roll like a nat 20 and we have the best read in the meta by accident. Or we have another Horizon Cup where we go 0-6 and 1-5.
Oh.
It happens.
Don't say that.
Look, I don't want it to happen, but I'm not gonna make any Twitch chat. I'm not gonna bet my channel points on it. You know.
Like I said, I think that NA at least is going to be a lot more competitive, especially more diversely competitive. I will say there's more layers this time, so that's good.
Hopefully. And now we have a question from Nano, the coach of Cloud9. What is the comparative strength of North America versus EU? Excoundrel, I know you were talking about EU. We've been talking about your region for a long time here. This is your chance to finally kind of make your stamp your mark here. Thoughts on the region versus region?
I think Europe in general are a bit more calculated in the way they play the game. Like I think Europe are very macro orientated, and I think they generally have quite a solid rhythm, and especially the top teams, they have quite a solid rhythm to how they play the game. They're very like a lot of the European pros are very kind of like big on tempo and how we use tempo to our advantage. But I actually think the North American players have a better mechanical skill ceiling. I actually think a lot of the North American pros are better mechanical players than, because a lot of the pros are younger as well. Like they generally come through with higher levels of mechanical skill. So I think like you've got some really high skill ceiling and mechanical players, like to rival the places like Korea and China. Like Starting, I think, is one of the best mechanical players in the world on his day, right? So I think
Yes.
like you have that quality in North America. I just still think that North America is locking down ways to translate that into like team fight wins and better plays around objectives and things like that. Whereas I think Europe are better at playing around objectives. Europe has, if you look back at Queso were the objective team fighting team. Like that was their strength in Europe, and that's kind of been their strength that we've seen from the WREC going forward. They a bit more cohesive. They play more around their objectives, but I think the North American players generally have a higher mechanical skill ceiling. So all in, if you got them to a similar level in terms of macro and sort of the way they play the game, you'd probably expect North America to come out on top more often than not. But right now, I think European teams play the game a little bit more consistently than North American teams, I would say.
That makes sense to me. I will say, as an NA fan, macro is easier to teach than mechanics. So
It's true.
You're feeding into my hopium right now.
Depends on who you ask, because I've had this discussion with a bunch of like different coaches from across like different games. Some people for League PC and Wildrift, they're like micro is much easier to teach than macro, vice versa. So it depends
That's
on who you
interesting.
ask for that question. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I agree. I subscribe to this line of thinking.
Like you're asking the wrong people sometimes.
Exactly. Maybe that's the case. Maybe I'm just in a bad crowd for that part. But all in all, Excoundrel, all I'm hearing is that you think that EU, if we were to take 100 games and play them like top 3 versus top 3, EU would win like what, 55? Are we saying 60% of the time?
I reckon it's a 60-40 to EU right now, but that can change.
Okay. Sam, I don't know how you're feeling about North America, but I know
I'm taking
high
NA all the way,
Hopium.
of course.
Okay, good.
100
The
to 0,
Hopamine
no
is
question.
on track. There we go. That's what I like to see. I was gonna say North America has been looking a lot stronger this season so far. I mean,
I agree.
already we're seeing a lot of better play compared to what we saw last year, where it was literally just Tribe and then everybody else, and now Immortals is actually not only mechanically playing some fights well as alongside Sentinels and some other teams, but they're actually playing the map in like a pretty recognizable way to like hire some of the better teams in the world. So I'm actually really excited for North America this time around.
Truly, I'm usually like very optimistic when it comes to the teams that I'm a fan of, and like I have friends on and everything. Coming out of Horizon Cup, the most optimistic that I could possibly push myself to be was, it's only up from here. And it's a lot further up than I thought it would be, honestly. With a lot of the other teams too. So my optimism feels rewarded at this point. I think that NA is in a really good direction with the top teams. So I'm I know that Nano is asking this because he's on one of those top teams. He's
yes,
the coach. So
that's exactly why.
I believe in you, Nano. I believe in the NA boys.
Awesome. Well, I think that actually wraps up the show. So thank you to everybody who is watching. Excoundrel, thank you for not only putting up with us, but also putting up with it being close to like 1 to 2 a.m. your time.
Just 5 past 1. I will be going straight to bed. Don't trust me.
That's what I like to hear. No Lost Ark in your future for tonight.
Oh.
No, because my son's going to wake up at 6 a.m, so I need to get at least 5 hours sleep before I start work at 8:30. So I've got to give it a go.
Perfect. Excoundrel, do you want to have any shout outs? Is there anybody that you want to give thanks to before you go?
No, thanks to you guys for having me on. I have had a lot of fun. I think I'm actually doing some casting for WREC this weekend, so I'll get to do some professional casting, which would be great. And you guys should definitely tune in and watch both the North American and European Wild Rift esports scenes, because I think we've got a lot of like promising talent, and we're a grassroots scene that definitely needs the support. So just make sure you guys come out and chat, and we'll be in Twitch chat. We'll say hello, and I know I am anyway. Be in Twitch chat and say hello, and yeah, we'll work together to not flop at the first international tournament this year. So there we go.
That's what I like to hear. Until we actually have to face each other and like cannibalize the Western regions, we're brothers in arms. That's exactly what I like to hear. Excoundrel, where can we find you on social medias?
At Excoundrel on every single social media physically possible.
Perfect.
So there you go.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay, Sam, are you? Is there any kind of final thoughts for today?
No, I was really happy here to be here on this first episode. For anyone who's been following me for a while, you know that I am a little bit of a podcast gremlin, so I'm glad to bring that over to Wild Rift. And yeah, what a first episode. Thank you so much for being here, Excoundrel. It was really fun catching up with you. It's been a bit, since Horizon Cup when we were on that show together. So very nice catching up with you. And I'd say it's nice catching up with you, AlkBattery, but we talk every day, and we are always on the ranked ladder, trying our best to climb out. So just another Tuesday for us. But
just low emerald things happens every week. Thank you to everybody who's been watching. Thank you to the production crew who's helping put the show together. And again, thank you to Excoundrel for your time today. You'll be able to catch us in 2 weeks for episode 2. But if you want to tune in some more Wild Rift action, this weekend we will also have another bit of Wild Rift for the WNS. For North America, we will have our first major. So please tune in. It's going to be at Wild Rift Esports, if I'm correct, on the official channel. So
and GiantSlayer TV,
perfect timing there. And GiantSlayer TV, so you can get your action everywhere. Thank you, everybody, and have a good night.